So before we start, so just a quick introduction of our speaker or our presenter. So Dane has a bachelor's degree in applied physics and computer systems, and currently she is a postgraduate research student at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and she's interested in environmental science and applied physics. So for today, for this evening, she will be helping us on how to present your the research paper. So for this, Dane,
Great, thank you, Jonathan. So today I will be talking about how to present. It's a presentation on presenting essentially. So since we're, there's just a few of us, please feel free to just ask any questions. Let's share our experiences. And there you go. So I'm going to be talking about oral and poster presentations. Next slide, please. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So, yeah, is this familiar to you guys? Is this look familiar to you? I've been on a lot of lectures, a lot of science conferences, a lot of I mean, no offense to some. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're great scientists, but maybe the problem is with me. Maybe I just don't understand. Yeah, maybe I just don't have like the technical background, and I kind of look like this after all these lectures. But like, is this look familiar to you guys? Like, you're pretty. It's a great lecture, and I'm pretty sure there's people other people understand, but I it's just not for me. Yeah, and it's kind of relatable, right? And that's what we want to talk about today. Like, how do we like communicate our research, being, yes, scientists, budding scientists? How do we communicate our research to other people? Next. So why are we doing this? Why is communication important? Like, we're okay, we get it. We can be technical, we can be really good at science, we can be really good at math, but how do we fare on communication? How do we fare on essentially our social skills? So I just want to ask maybe one or two guests, why are we doing this? Why are we having a presentation on presenting our science research? So is it okay for me to call them people?
yeah, sure.
Maybe somebody wants to volunteer and then tell me, like, why are we having this lecture anyway? It's a Saturday. um it's a Saturday, and we're having a nice weekend, and you're here with me on this lecture, so I'm really grateful. But why are we doing this in the first place? So anyone has an idea?
Maybe I can share my answer to your question. I think not many scientists or great not all great minds and scientists are able to communicate very well um, what they have achieved or what they have concluded. So sometimes if you go to a conference, there is a very important presentation, and the presenter, you know that it's an important study. In our case, it's cancer trials. You know that it's
Exactly.
important study, but because of the time limitation, they need to race through 15 minutes to convey very important findings, and you see the slides are so filled with
So
information.
much, yeah. Mm-mm.
And then yeah, you in the end, you that's the facial reaction that you get. It's like you're trying to process what question to ask because it's just too many things all at once.
Yeah, exactly, thank you. Like, we don't even know where to start. Like, what I don't know, what I don't know, and it's such a shame because there's so much that we can learn from each other, but we kind of get lost in all the details. There's just too many charts, like we don't even know where to start. And so I think that's why we're doing this lecture on a Saturday. And again, thank you everybody for joining. So maybe we can go on the next slide, and I'll read you this really good quote. When scientists are able to communicate effectively beyond their peers to broader non-scientist audiences, it builds support for science, promotes understanding of its wider relevance to society, and encourages more informed decision making at all levels, from government to communities to individuals. So, maybe just for the researchers here, for the scientists here, we are called to communicate not just to our fellow scientists, right? We have to reach a broader audience, and that's what we want to do with our research. We want it to be relevant to other people as well who are not in our field. Okay, next slide, please. So let's go on to what are we going to be talking about tonight? I'm going to try to keep it short so we can have some exchanges in the Q&A. The first is the main takeaway, and the second is I'll present some technical details on the oral and poster presentation content. So I can share the slides afterwards, and then we have the toolbox. Like, this is so important. We have a toolbox. Do you know that? We all are working with toolboxes that will help us present better. And lastly, we'll have the Q&A. Next slide, please. So my main takeaway is there are just 3 points for this whole lecture. If you forget you don't have to remember everything, but just remember these 3 main takeaway points is, first of all, have a main takeaway point. Okay, it's just a main takeaway pointception, but what do you want to convey in your research presentation? Like, what's the most important result that you want people to remember after like forever? Okay, that's the first thing. Have a main takeaway point. Maybe keep it to 3. 3 is a good number, but don't try to overburden them with, again, so many details. So just have three points that you want them to remember. And the second is keep it simple. If again, we want to communicate to our audience who may not have the same background as us, so we want to keep it simple. We want to keep it relevant to them. And the third one is use your tools. This is a toolbox that I'm talking about. We have the visuals, we have the body, we have the voice, but we'll talk about that later on. Okay, next slide. So what's okay? This is kind of a shameless plug. This is one of my conferences back in Singapore. This is my poster. I try to keep it a bit colorful because that's one of the tools that we're working with, right? We have the poster, we have unlimited space, we want it to be colorful. And the scientific poster, essentially, you present this in conferences. And you want to fit all of your research details in this one huge sheet of paper. So it's a challenge because, of course, we want to include a lot of things, but we also have a limited space to work in. And we want to make it visually appealing too. So, a scientific poster is, we want to communicate by visually presenting a comprehensive but condensed version of our research. So again, sticking to what our takeaway points are and like building around that narrative. Next. Okay. So these are the few questions that we want to answer for our poster presentation. Again, 3 points. What's the most important or astounding finding from my research project? So you have to own it. You have to be proud. Okay, this is what we discovered. We worked so hard for this, and we want to present it to you guys. We want to communicate it to you guys. So just keep that in mind. What are the most important points that you want your audience to remember from your research presentation? And the second question that we want to ask is, how can I visually share my research? So what kind of charts will I use? Should I use photos of people? Should I use little pretty graphs? So, we have those tools. I'm pretty sure when you're doing your research, you're going to come up with pictures of diagrams. Sometimes pictures, they speak louder than words. Okay, we don't want to read a block of text. Like, okay, nobody wants to read a whole block of text. Of course, we'll need the block of texts, but we also, we need a break. We need to have some pictures, some color, those kinds of things in our poster presentation. And the third is, why did we go back to number 1? Whatever, just ignore the slide. That should be number 3. What kind of information can I convey during my talk that will complement my poster? So again, we want to present our research, but we don't have to talk about everything in our research. So what kind of information? We just have to like kind of limit our everything that we put in there. Okay, so those are the three questions that we want to answer with our research presentation. Okay, next slide, please. A guideline, and in conference of a poster presentation. Para siyang kodigo. So you have the introduction, short introduction, the objectives. Okay, this may be one of the most important things that you're going to include in your research presentation. The objectives, like what do you want to achieve? So let's keep that to like two or three objectives. And then we have the methods, like how do we answer the objectives of this poster presentation? And then lastly, we have the results. Okay, so for the results, we have a lot of results, right? I mean, as scientists, we do have a lot of results from all of the in any field, like in all of the iterations of our experiment, we have a lot of results. But what's important is we have to filter out and just to see what kind of results answers our objectives. So I usually just keep it to like 1, 2, or 3 charts in my poster presentation. And then you have the conclusion and the references and the disclosures and the acknowledgements. So these are quite technical, but it's a good guide when you have to present, in international conferences. But I don't want to dwell on this too much. So let's go to the next slide. If you have any questions, please feel free to butt in. There's just it's an intimate group, so we want to keep the conversation open. Okay, great. So I'm going to be talking about oral presentations now because oral presentations are something that I'm quite passionate about. I like presenting. I like talking about my research. I like talking about science, and these are if you have to present your research, I recommend this 5 items to be in your slides. Okay, 5 items. So the background, this is also like the introduction. So what's the state of the current research? What's lacking? Why did I choose this topic? What's the background? So that's the first. And then the second is what's the problem or research gap? Okay, what's the current issues now? Or why is it important that you have to study this? Like what kind of gaps are we trying to fill in? Right? And then the next is objective and the research question. So I also mentioned this in the scientific poster, but let's try to keep our objectives to like 2 or 3, and research questions like what do we want to answer with our research? And this is really important. It's important, but the most important is what are our objectives? Like what do we want to achieve with this research? And we have to make that really clear when we're presenting because everything else follows. And the methodology should be linked to number 3 because the methodology should answer what your research questions are, right? They have to answer they have to you have a research question and how do you want to answer this question? And so you have to make that clear in the methodology. It's like they come together. And then lastly, you have the results, and your results must answer the research questions. So again, I put it there, keep it simple. So you're gonna see this a lot in my slides. Keep it simple. Yeah, next please. So again, take away, like look at the picture, right? They're so cute. We have like a little spaceship there. Take away, like they're taking off. Like what's the takeaway points? And I would recommend like maybe listing points, and you start with these points,
and you build your presentation around it. Okay, that's the key. So what do you want your audience, what do you want your professors, your classmates, what do you want them to know? And then you have to build around that. Okay? It sounds kind of counterintuitive kasi usually, di ba, we start with introduction, tapos we have the problem and then the methodology. But we really want them to honor research and figure out why it's relevant to their life, to our lives. So the takeaway points that it's good to consider. And then just backwards, so you have 3 points, and how do you make a story? How do you make this understandable to everyone and make your focus clear? Again, it all adds up to having the problems and answering those problems clearly with your results. Okay, next. I'm just going through some of those little the numbers earlier that I talked about. So again, I mentioned the problem and the research gap. So present your goals and aims. So that's one of is one of the other names for the research questions. What do you aim to achieve with your research? What are the goals of your research? Yeah, we have different names for it, but essentially they're the same thing. And then present your research questions if possible. I usually like to present it in a question type. It's more understandable that way. But if it's not possible, it's okay to say things like, oh, this for my case, because I'm doing climate research, and I kind of want to account for greenhouse gas emissions for short-lived climate pollutant emissions for the Hong Kong solid waste sector. So essentially, how I say it is, my goal is to account for a baseline for the Hong Kong waste sector, short-lived climate pollutants. So, para clear siya sa lahat, like, ano ba yung gusto kong gawin? And it's question form, but it's clear I want to account for this short-lived climate pollutants. And it's clear what the output would be, which are like charts, how. So, those are the results that I expect to have. So I haven't started yet. I'm just starting my research now. So let's hope for the best. And yeah, exactly. So again, when I mentioned that the research and the methods, they have to kind of complement each other. How do we answer these problems? And the methodology would come after. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so I just shared a few charts here. So we have tools. We have like these visual tools. Like, they're really pretty, right? The charts are like colorful, x-axis, and it's clear. There are labels. It's really important. So what do you want your audience to know? Again, the results, try to keep it to 3 to 4 charts. Okay, we're scientists, and we kind of want to include everything, diba? Because we're proud of our work. So we include like 10 slides. People actually do that. There's like so many. Tayo, yung audience, parang, but ang dami? Parang, I don't know what I don't know. That's just my observation. Okay, so minsan, and they're like, oh yeah, this is my chart. Oh, just ignore that. We don't really need that. If they say that, like, then bakit mo yung chart na yun kung hindi mo talaga kailangan? Diba? It just further confuses the audience. I'm actually already experienced that before. Parang may nagpe-present, tapos, ang daming charts, tapos, ay, hindi natin kailangan yan. Ito na yung kailangan natin. Tapos, i-highlight nila yung isang chart. And, like, why would we need all the other charts if we're just going to talk about one chart? Just include that one chart. They don't need to know everything. I know you work really hard, and we work really hard, and we're really proud of our work. But they don't need to know everything. They just need to know 1 or 2 things, and then they'll be good with it, So we have a lot of charts that we could use. We have this charts, scatter plots. Yung iba, they use like maps. That really depends on the field you're in. Usually, how do you present your results? So for me, since I'm doing environment, so usually we have like a map, like of Metro Manila, and then
we put like where the hot spots of the emissions are, or like on the roads, di ba? Parang ganun. And it's visually appealing. May mga color spectrum siya, like parang red to green or something like that. So that's one of the tools we have so we can communicate better our results. And okay, the last is please label your charts. It seems very basic, but I attended a lecture last Thursday. 2 days ago lang. I mean, really smart kid, really great. What was this lecture on? He was talking about like the nitrous oxide emissions or something like that on the roads, and he had really good results. But his chart didn't have any labels. Like I don't know what are these emissions. Are these CO2? Are these methane? I don't know. Kasi those labels, those legends, as much as possible. Label your charts, name your charts. And I'm also guilty of doing this because my advisor, I was presenting in Singapore, that poster presentation, they were like, girl, walang label ang slides mo. Anong meaning nito? So it may be very obvious to you, but maybe the audience is the first time they see your charts and they don't know. So it's really just important to label your charts, even though it's kind of repetitive, but your audience will thank you for that. Okay, next. We talk a lot about results. Okay, this is the most important thing. This is my third agenda for tonight. So we're getting there. You have a toolbox with you. Okay, you have a really important toolbox, and we all have this toolbox. And this toolbox will help us communicate our research better, make us better communicators, not only in our field, not only for science, but like in life in general, in your lectures, in your Zoom classes. I know we're all taking Zoom classes and all have Zoom meetings or Microsoft Team meetings. So ito yung 3 toolbox natin. We have all these great tool sets at our disposal. The first is your body. Body language is really important. Does anybody know the guy in the photo? Maybe somebody can answer me. Who's the guy in the photo?
This is Neil Tyson deGrasse?
Neil deGrasse Tyson, correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great astrophysicist, diba? He's really popular. And I was watching his interviews for this lecture because I kind of rehashed what he was teaching because he taught a course in scientific communication. And he was using a lot of hands, you could see his hands. And in this photo, you could see his hands. It's very expressive. So you can actually use when you're presenting, you don't want to be like, oh my gosh, this is my research and it's great and it's exciting and this is our results. Like that's really boring. Okay, we want to be animated and oh yeah, these are our results and you point to your charts and this is that, and that kind of engages the audience. Like kahit online siya, important pa rin yung hands. Very, very important. People look at this. So body language is essential to communication. Like I know it's just in our toolbox. It's not very technical. It's not very scientific, but it's a good tool to use just to convey anything. Not even your research. Even I mean, it could help in your research. It could help a lot. But just talking to your classmates, talking to your professors, use hand gestures. You have these tools. They're good tools. And the second is your voice. You want to speak in a monotone like this. Nobody wants to hear that. Okay, let's use a bit of variation. Like use different tones, different volumes. That's one of the tools to engage also your audience because they have to sit. They have to sit on your lecture and you're excited to share with them, but you also have to engage them, use different tones, different ranges. That will help you, and different speeds too. You can slow down when you want to, if you want to emphasize something, or if you just want to run through things, you can also do that. But use your voice. That's your second item in your toolbox. And the third is time. Time. People actually practice. We practice if we have a presentation, di ba? Nagpa-practice tayo to see, okay, paano ba siya? Like how
ano ba yung mga kailangan kong add dito sa lecture ko? Or like, is there something I'm missing?
We also take good feedback from our friends. So practice, practice, practice. Time is really important in our. So if you want to give a good lecture, you want to give a good presentation, you want to communicate your research, you can always practice. And I'm pretty sure your friends will be very happy to sit in and listen to your work. Of course, you know, your friends, they're supportive of you and they want you to thrive. They want you to be the best that you can be.
Okay, next, please. So let's have a little, activity. So this was my first TA. I was a TA. I was a teaching assistant, and it was just. I mean, can somebody tell me what's wrong with my photo here? Can somebody? I mean, we're all doing Zoom classes. We're all doing online meetings, right? Can somebody just tell me just what's I mean, it's okay. We don't know this person. Like she's what like we don't know this person. This is just some random person on the internet. She doesn't hear a thing. She doesn't know that we're talking about her. So let's talk about this photo. What's wrong with it? Maybe somebody can tell me. It's okay. It's okay. She's not listening. So maybe you can tell me what's wrong with this photo.
Is it too dark or something?
Yeah,
I
You
agree.
yeah,
don't see the face, no?
exactly. Di ba sayang? Just kidding. Just messing. No. Yeah, but I agree. It's very dark. That's the thing. Really dark photo. This was my first day of classes, and I was doing a TA, and I was just in the dark. I was talking to all my students, and they can't even see my face. So let's go to the next slide because I will support this point. Yeah. So, okay, in our toolbox, we want to talk about the technical details too. So maybe we can have like a little activity. I just okay, so maybe for some of us here, maybe we can open our videos because I want to see you. If it's possible, right? We want to see each other's faces. We're all smiling. We're all having a good Saturday. We're all having a good time. Maybe I can see. Yeah, open your videos. I want to see you. No, because I just want to talk about the technical details because we're all doing online presentations now. Okay, and how do we present in a way that's presentable? Because that earlier photo of me in the dark, that's not how you communicate to people. Because like we want to see your face, we want to see the expressions, and this is more on a technological side, but it's something we kind of take for granted, but it's also very important. So I would usually, if I was on a computer right now, I'd be doing this. Microphone is really important. We want to be heard when we're giving a lecture. It's kind of really basic, but if we're talking to our professors or we're talking to our classmates on Zoom, we want to make sure that our microphone is okay, right? So everybody can hear us, we could hear them, and it's all good. Everyone understands. That's communication. Like these are the things that we want to kind of have to communicate properly. We want to have like a good sound system. And then for our video calls, so I'm just gonna give you some tips. I don't have like the best tools right now, but angle, when you're having a meeting or you're presenting something, you want your camera to be on your level. You don't want to like give lectures like this. Like you could see my nose. That's not very cute. That's not very flattering. Or like you wanna be make it too high that you could, some people they attend class and they're like this. So I don't right. I you can't see their faces, you can't engage with them. So if you can attend class and then you want people to see you, you want to put your camera kind of down here. This is the right level. And you know it's the right level and the right distance. So I'm talking about distance now, when you can see your hands. Because again, body language is really important kahit na online classes siya. And then we have the background. So right now my background is just white. Usually we use virtual backgrounds. We try not to use too much fake backgrounds because nahahalata na virtual background lang siya. So that's also something. This is just basic, stuff, but something that we're all experiencing right now doing online classes, and this it's really valuable to have like a good online presence. And then the lighting. So usually if I'm in my office, I have like a light on my face. Kasi you saw my face kanina, di ba? It was super dark. So we want to have some light on our face. So bumili ako ng lamp para hindi masyadong madilim ang mukha ko. Yeah, okay. We can go next. So this is just a toolbox like online for online meeting that we could use. So I just again put my main takeaway point in this lecture. I'm sorry if it's for repetitive, but it is just something that I feel like a lot of us could benefit from, and I'm also reminding this to myself. The first is have a main takeaway point, have main takeaway points that you want your audience to remember. Second, keep it simple. Sometimes your audience are not your peers or they're not in the same field as you. So as possible, pretty sure you understand it. You're great. You're really smart. But we have to communicate also our research so other people can appreciate it. So maybe we can use like simple terms. Like for me, because I talked about Hong Kong waste emissions, diba? So maybe we can like relate it to a simple story, like yeah, back in my hometown, we kind of just burned our garbage. It's like a story like that, and that's not. It's kind of relatable. Like, yeah, like how did we even deal with our garbage? Because it's something that's every day that happens to us, but and everyone can understand it. Like, and nobody. I mean, not everyone can understand. Oh, short-lived climate pollutant emissions. Like nobody, not everybody could understand that, but everyone can understand. Oh, you're producing garbage. Where does this go? Or like, did you ever have to experience like backyard burning of your garbage? So, di ba? Parang ganun. Parang nagiging relatable siya. So, keep it simple. Simple language is good. Okay. And unless you're on the same page, but usually you're not. So, and the third one is our toolbox. We have toolbox. Your visuals, the poster, the colors, the body language, the voice, and technical details that I talked about the Zoom meetings. So the lighting, the angle, the voice modulation, the microphone, those are really important things that we often overlook, but they're very effective in our online presence. Next. Okay. I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, but That's all of my presentation. So I want to keep it short, sweet, and simple. So conversation here. So do you have any questions?
Okay, guys, so if you have any question for Dane, you can fire it away. By the way, thank you so much for that presentation. It's really helpful. It's really informative, not just for students probably, also for the researchers. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So maybe you can ask maybe some of our students here, our mentees, maybe. And maybe you're gonna be presenting your research soon. I know you've been working hard over like the past few months on it. Maybe you just have some questions you wanna ask.
Okay, to our mentees, especially since in a few months you'll be defending your researches, this is the perfect time to ask question and how to present your research.
John,
Go
will
ahead, Renzo.
the students in SIDHI present their work to the SIDHI group as well? Are we thinking about that?
I think so po. Although I think the core team and the exec team can have a talk about it. Because for now, we have decided to actually feature the researches of our mentees to our Facebook page once they are done. So basically, the
Okay.
poster type of presentation would probably apply to that,
Ah,
which
yeah.
Dane already talked about, especially the charts and the pictures. So of course that will apply to it, po. But we are not sure yet. I think Kat is planning on having like a virtual conference for all of our
Mm.
researches. I mean, for the mentees and the mentors to be in one event. So yeah, we are planning. I think we are planning for it, po. Although I'm not. I'm still a little bit hazy with the details. I'm so sorry.
Actually, Ma'am Carmela, that's such a great suggestion. Like, I won't take it as a question, but it's a suggestion that everyone just, because we're also interested in the research ng other mentees, diba? Like, hindi lang yung mentees namin, like, as mentors. So, we want to hear what everyone has. And it's also a good avenue for them to practice their present. Because
Exactly.
presenting is nerve-wracking. Sometimes, like, public speaking is something that's, challenging for most, especially for if you're just starting out. So it'd be a good like a training ground, and it's a safe environment. We're not gonna be we're just gonna be listening and then just helping each other out. So it's a good, really great suggestion.
Exactly. I don't know if you guys experience na yung ano kasi ngayon syempre more on Zoom tayo pero I did have experiences presenting on stage. And the thing is one thing that and maybe I can ask the other colleagues kung na-experience nyo ito kasi 'di ba on stage yung light first of all you cannot see directly the audience and sometimes you cannot see the sort of the camera or the monitor where you are supposed to see the prompt. So I've had conferences na yung monitor is really one big screen like right in front of the speaker so makikita mo what is the next slide. Pero meron din akong engagements na the monitor is like on the floor. So hindi mo makita masyado. So in this case, it can become helpful if you actually memorize your presentation. But maybe I would like to ask the other mentors or yung mga ibang students if you had this experience. Do you memorize? Don't you memorize? Do you keep cards with you? Anong strategy nyo?
I think I can probably share a bit on that since, like Dane, I also like presenting my research orally. Although just a quick storytelling. The first time that I presented a research, like Dane said, it's really nerve-wracking. So I'm wearing a light blue shirt, and before my presentation, it became dark blue.
Ah,
So
ah,
That's not a cute look.
it's not a cute look. That is the first. And then after that, I'm like, okay, I should the next time I present, I should compose myself really well before starting. I should not, of course, the nervousness is there, but I should like control it. And then what I do is I don't have I'm not a big fan of cue cards personally, but to some people it actually works. To some people it works. What I do
Yeah.
is I tend to practice a lot in front of a mirror. I talk
Time. You have time.
I talk to myself.
that's a
I
good
talk
Yeah,
to
yeah.
thing.
myself.
That's in your toolbox. Yeah.
Yeah, I talk to myself, and then I tend to understand the slides, not necessarily use it as a cue card or something like that, but I tend to understand the slide and then just do the storytelling along the way, something like that.
Eh,
But again, different
Yeah.
presenters have different way of practicing and delivering speech. Some actually uses the notes in the
Yeah.
PowerPoint. Some people do
Yeah.
not. Yeah, which of course it works for them.
Yeah, and maybe my advice to you, I mean, maybe it's an unwarranted advice, Jonathan, but maybe next time try to wear something dark.
I
No,
will
no, no.
to make
definitely
things
do.
No,
lighter.
I
On
will.
on that
Joke.
point, ano 'to, ako ang strategy ko diyan, meron akong kasi well, I did this when we were doing meetings face to face, but I must say that whenever I also have meetings on Zoom, meron akong tipong power suit at saka power heels.
I
Try ko
no, it
talaga.
really helps.
I see. It
So, yeah.
No,
helps.
So,
it really
and I must
helps.
say, kahit na nasa Zoom meeting ako, I actually dress up the part. Kasi parang it
Accordingly.
helps you to parang to be in the zone, parang ganon. And kahit na
Yeah.
nasa
Mm-hmm.
bahay ako,
Mm.
whenever pag-present ako ng something or I'm part of a conference, I actually wear my heels. Kasi parang parang mentally ko alam ko na okay, I am in this meeting, I'm presenting. Tapos yun nga, syempre for presenters yun nga dahil for depende siguro, and in Europe this is also something, may mga ibang cultures na when you are very well dressed, they don't respect you that much kasi parang feeling nila ay masyado kang superficial. Pero
Mm-mm.
in general for conferences, of course, people tend to be well dressed and they are
Well
in a suit
dressed.
or at least a respectable dress. Pero at least kung may suit ka, it prevents unnecessary accidents probably. Although I must say,
Right.
meron din ako narinig na talk na one thing about presenting is also letting yourself be vulnerable. So actually, yung
Mm,
presenting without a suit is also a sign for you to engage with your audience. So, yon.
actually.
Pero
That's
yun
actually
nga lang.
really
It depends
helpful.
siguro sa presenter.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
So for the students
Question,
Very
how
here,
do you guys
different.
deal with yung para sa Zoom presentations? Kapag may two screens kayo, minsan ito yung nerve-wracking for me, yung hindi mo alam kung saan hahanapin yung presentation mo. Minsan you think na nandun na siya sa first screen, and how do you practice this point? How do you guys do it? Yung kapag two screens or three screens even, how do you
So
do it?
actually, I just had a few experiences, and usually, like before the start of the class or something, we usually I check how my slides look. Yeah, that's part of the practice. If it's possible to go to the room earlier and be like, this is what I'm presenting. I want to see how it looks like to my audience before they even get in the room. So that's just what I do. I try to start early, try to present what I have already. How about the others?
ako, I haven't done a Zoom meeting yet with like 2 or 3 split screens because usually we're using Microsoft Teams, and in Microsoft Teams, you'll just gonna go directly to like when you're presenting a PowerPoint presentation, like it's just one big screen.
Mm-mm.
I see.
By the way, to the
Yeah.
students, we're
Mhm.
not just talking about things. This is actually an exchange. So I think you're now,
Yeah.
I think this is a perfect opportunity for you to get some tips, some details, again, wear something
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
Actually,
And practice, practice,
I've
practice.
learned that lesson so hard. So after that, every time I present, I tend to go with dark blue or dark red now. That's my color now when I present.
Let, let's learn.
Yeah.
Great. I actually want to hear some from the students. Maybe I just want to ask, how's your research and when do you plan on presenting your research? Maybe I can call on Joshua. I see Joshua, and then I want to hear. Do you have any plans on presenting your research soon? How is it gonna work? Now, if it's gonna be online. Joshua, are you there?
Good evening here from
Yeah.
the Philippines. As for us, as still
Hello.
we haven't heard anything from our teachers, especially in our faculty, since our research is still kind of ang tawag, hindi pa po nabibigyan ng outline kung paano namin like i-represent or hindi pa po natatapos actually yung research namin. Kaya parang hindi po muna kami nagfo-focus dun kung paano ipe-present yun. Pero
Of
it's good.
course, of course.
I listened here dito sa lecture natin tonight and now, alam ko na kung paano yung gagawin sa school.
Great. So thanks, Joshua, for joining us. Yeah, of course. We still have time. We're still ironing some details out of our research. It's just difficult to do research, and it takes some time. And usually, the research, the presentation parts, that's just the icing on the cake, right? I mean, that's when we're proud of. Okay, this is what I worked so hard on for the past 3 years or something, and so we want to make it worth everyone's time. And we want to make it understandable because we worked so hard for it. So so it's great for you to join us.
For
Uh,
this year, yeah, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
yeah.
sorry. Let me just ask no mentors, students, listen carefully, no? Uh, do you sort of do some or have some backup slides? Kumbaga nasa ending part, beyond the ending part na siya, but you just want to have those slides there in case that there are questions that can be addressed by your research or by some of your data na hindi mo present but you think it might be asked. Do you do that?
Ako, yes, for us. For me, we have that, or sometimes naka-hide slide siya, or sometimes kasi minsan for us we work in a field na yung minsan yung mga ibang presenters, they don't immediately want to share everything na that they shared with the organizer. For example, merong new project na i-represent. And the project
Right,
is, let's say, under discussion with, let's say, companies and everything. So, meron
right.
silang mga data na parang sensitive na they don't immediately want to share. Um, So yon i-verify muna, naka-ready siya for backup, pero hindi namin siya immediately i-share unless we have an agreement with the presenter na okay, this is ready to be shared. Another thing is
Yes.
that minsan yung PowerPoint presentation, pagka i-share na namin, so i-present mo siya, 'di ba? Pero pag i-share mo na siya as part of meeting minutes, ganon, kino-convert nila into PDF, and they, in a way, they try to edit a little bit kasi may mga ibang information na they don't want to be altered or changed by those who will receive it, or they make sure na okay, these, kasi usually yung mga backup slide usually details to so what some presenters tend to do is that they make sure na okay, it's very clear na ito confidential information, not meant to be shared beyond this group, or papakita nila na sasabihin nila this is information that is it's still undergoing further analysis, not yet ready to be used, something like that. So may mga ganong caveats, especially when yung mga tipong backup slides mo. Kasi yung backup slides mo usually ano to, mga detailed information or more confidential information.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with Ma'am Carmela. Usually may mga hidden slides ako. But you know what? The secret tool sometimes when I have presentation is I ask my friend, I'm like, I want to answer this question. Ask this question so I can prepare the slides. Now, I'm just for clarification because you understand your research, but some other people, they might be kind of confused. So you ask your friend, oh, please ask me this question so everyone can understand. And I prepared some slides. I'm like, oh, thanks so much for asking this question. It just so happened that I have these slides that I did not expect this question, but I have some slides prepared. So, I mean, that's also part of like how you're presenting your community, your research. It's all theatrics, but what's important is they ask a question and you're able to answer it.
But clarify ko lang for students, no? The limitations of using these hidden slides are siguro yung data na hindi nyo na present. sa ano sa inyong oral presentation. Pero you don't have to toxic yourself na ano pa bang mga possible na itatanong. You should you know your limitations of your study and stick to it. So, yun, it can help na may hidden slides tayo, no? But it's
Slides.
not hidden slides, sorry. But it's not really required. It's a well, it's an additional technique, but yeah, it's up to you
Additional.
guys.
Yeah. Yeah. You just need 3 points and you just need like 4 charts and that's okay. Like that's right. You don't need to overburden with everyone with so many details that just they don't have to know. They just have to know your story, your what your research was about and it's good. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and just to add up on that,
Anyone else has a question? Yes. Okay.
usually when I teach my students kapag magpe-present na sila, magde-defend na sila, I always tell them, if you understood your research, if talaga naintindihan niyo yung research, from the first slide down to the last, para lang kayong nagkikwento sa friend ninyo. Ganun lang siya dapat ka-simple. But if you don't
Yeah.
understand your research itself, para kang naglalakad sa dilim.
Madaming slides masyado.
Yes,
Like, yeah, yeah.
but if you really understand your research, if it's you really know it by heart, para ka lang nag-storytelling, parang ganun.
Yeah,
Yeah. So do you
that
have
is
more
true.
questions for Dane and probably for the other mentors here as well? Dieter, Joshua, Lawrence, Bianca, that could help you and the other mentees as well?
Maybe John, siguro in relation na lang to sa sinabi mo about the potential presentation of the students.
Yes po.
Siguro, even if we are not yet very clear cut
It's all
with
good.
the plans for their presentation, siguro advice na rin natin sa kanila na it's better that they collect yung parang photographs or yung parang of their experiments or them doing the experiments para if ever we push through with our virtual conference within SIDHI, at least ready na sila with the materials for presenting or for their poster or oral presentation.
Okay po. Yes po. I'll take note of that and I'll share it to Florence and the group and then probably blast it to the mentors so they can also say it to their mentees then. But I think most of the mentors have already mentioned it to take pictures while they're doing it. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And to add to that, one thing, because I used to do greenhouse gas accounting, and this is something really valuable that I learned in my life, is that there's no such thing as over documentation. Like document, document, document. Okay lang na sobrang dami mong documentation and you won't need it kaysa nakulang kayo sa data or kulang kayo sa documentation that you kind of needed it. You cannot bring that time back. But if you had too much photos, you can just delete them. But there's no such thing as over documentation. So as much as possible, just take photos. It's okay. I mean, someday you'll look back and oh yeah, we did this experiment, we had this thing, and that's good to have just on your tools. Yeah, I'm not sure if I see Mom Carmela agreeing. Do you have you experienced that? There's no such thing as over documentation.
That is
It's
so
good to
true.
have document. That is so true, right?
That
I
is
mean,
so
as
true.
scientists, right?
Minsan,
Relate.
minsan isang subject lang pero kinuha mo pa yung picture ng lahat ng angle na pwede, parang ganun. Yeah, that
You
is
need,
really true.
yeah. So that's something really something I learned as I went along, just doing my thing. So yeah, maybe the students here, they can also try to see that. Just take photos on your phone. It's nothing fancy. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just a photo, just so you have something to look back to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So I think they don't have questions. I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
have more questions about presenting research, you can always reach Dane. Also,
Yeah.
this lecture is recorded and it will be posted in the SIDHI Facebook page in a few days or weeks. And then the slides, Dane already gave the slides, so we can share it to you guys and to the other mentees as well, so you can learn from the slides that he presented. So again, thank you very much, Dane, for giving us time this Saturday. We really appreciate it. That is a really good presentation. I've also learned a lot. So yeah, thank you so much.
Really, my pleasure. Have a nice weekend. And thank you for coming. Thank you, everybody. It was great talking to you. It was great sharing and just looking back on on our research journey and our research presentation and our conferences too.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye bye.